Chapter 5 Lost in a Stormy Sea. The boat strained against its anchor lines, rising and falling as the waves crashed by. The anchors had to be released before the ropes broke. The wind was roaring, and the driving rain stung our faces. It was now or never. "Okay, Wayne, I'll give you 5 minutes, no more. We have to get to shelter before we lose the boat and all end up in the water." "Okay, Amos, 5 minutes. I can do it." I quickly slipped a full tank into my backpack and turned on the air. As I stepped to the rail, Jack and Amos were ready to haul in the two stern anchors. I had to hurry. Holding my face mask with my right hand, I jumped feet first into the water. Flipping over and kicking powerfully with my swim fins, I dived straight to the bottom. I could feel the sea surges even down past 40 feet as I headed back to the place where we had found the gold chain. From the corner of my eye, I saw the big airlift pipe jerking upward as Jack and Amos hurriedly pulled it into the boat. There it was. The chain lay like a gold snake coiled on the seabed. I settled over it and started working my fingers down into the sand, feeling the chain between my thumb and fingers. Deeper and deeper I probed. There seemed to be no end. It was a race against time. I knew that the scene above on the boat would be chaos about now. I had to free the chain and to get back before the huge waves ripped the boat from the sight. "This is stupid," I told myself. "I've let gold fever override my better sense. What if I get stuck alone at sea in this raging storm?" I worked feverishly, waving sand away while pulling at the chain. I looked at my watch. 4 minutes had gone by. From the corner of my eye, I saw the starboard anchor rope come snaking down and fall nearby. Its frazzled end told the tale. It had parted, snapped by the raging seas. That meant the boat would not be where I left it. "Okay, Wayne," I scolded myself. "It's time to give up and get out of here." Just then my fingers touched something on the chain that was different. I dug deeper in the sand, and I was up in at my elbows. I worked the chain, and it came loose. I pulled it up inch by inch with both hands. As it cleared the sand, I saw a large gold crucifix, studded with red stones. "Rubies!" I thought. The chain was about 4 feet long. It was extremely beautiful. My heart pounded with excitement as I wrapped the whole chain around my left arm and pulled the cross close to my face mask. It was at least 4 inches high and studded with red stones. The chain had diamonds fixed in every 5th link. At that moment, I knew we had found part of the treasure that had been probably kept in a chest in the captain's cabin. There might even be part of the chest itself deeper in the sand. I was quickly making sure there was no more gold in the hole when my fingers touched another chain. I frantically worked to free it, but my time was up. I had to surface. As I climbed, I could both see and feel the huge waves that lashed the sea above. By the time I reached 10 feet from the surface, the surge was so powerful, my body was being slung back and forth as the waves passed overhead. My head broke the surface. The boat was gone. I spun in a circle, and there to the west was the treasure hunter being swept shoreward. I guessed in an instant what had happened. When the stern line broke, the bow line had held on long enough for the boat to be pulled down when a big wave rolled by. Instead of climbing up the wave, the anchor held the boat down, and the wave broke right over it, flooding the engines. Amos had been forced to cut the bowline to keep the boat from sinking. I could see him and Jack desperately working on the engines, trying to start them. But with every passing second, the boat moved farther from me. When a huge wave passed under me and I was at its peak, I saw Jack looking for me. I waved frantically. But by the time I slid down the backside of the wave and rose from the next one, I was alone. The boat was nowhere to be seen. "Amos!" I shouted. My voice was swallowed by the raging storm. I strained to see the boat, but with the pouring rain and waves breaking all around me, it was impossible. I hit the inflate button on my buoyancy compensator, BC, and the air filled it until I was floating in the squalling. There's the boat, and he's waving to his friends, and he's got the gold chain. Lash water. I looked at the beautiful chain and crucifix wrapped around my arm and smiled. It was solid gold and studded with diamonds and rubies, but now I had real problems. I was lost and alone in a storm-tossed sea. Even if Amos and Jack got the boat's engine started, they would never find me, and they had to get the boat to sheltered water immediately. I had been diving most of my adult life and have faced some pretty scary moments at sea, but this was the worst. To swim to shore 5 miles to the west was possible, but I was in the Gulf Stream, which ran north at about 6 miles an hour, taking anything and everything with it. I remembered hearing of fishing boats breaking down off Palm Beach area, drifting all the way to the Georgia coast before being found. Okay, Wayne, stay calm. You're still strong and can float with the current. The water is warm, and when the storm is over, the Coast Guard will be looking for you, I tried to convince myself. I looked at my watch. It was 12:25 p.m., but the storm clouds were so black it was like night. A chill ran through me. I was colder than I should have been. Hypothermia! Because I had been at the cold bottom, my body temperature had dropped. I knew I had to stay warm or I could die of exposure. The rain was so heavy I could not tell where the shore was. Usually the condos that line the South Florida beaches stand out like white sentinels, marking the shoreline, but I could see nothing. I started swimming, kicking my fins for propulsion, but I realized immediately that the waves were so high and the current so strong that I could make no headway, or even stay straight course as I swam. I'd better wait for the storm to pass before I waste all my energy, I reasoned. Better to end up somewhere to the north than to drown trying to fight the waves. Each passing wave slapped me in the face, causing me to swallow salt water if I didn't react in time. Because snorkels interface with working at the bottom, I was not wearing one. A snorkel would have allowed me to float face down and rise and fall with the waves as I breathed above them. I wished I had one. For hours I floated, fighting to breathe and trying to see the shoreline so I could save myself. I had no idea if Amos and Jack had made it to safety. Night came at about 5:30 p.m., and the storm was still raging. While it was still light, I had felt pretty confident I could survive, but after nightfall, alone, tired, and cold, I realized that this might be my last day on Earth. And for what? I scolded myself. A gold anchor to help me sink to the bottom. By midnight, I was totally exhausted. I had dropped my weight belt and tank about an hour after I surfaced. And all I had in the world now was my BC, my fins, and a gold chain with a ruby-studded crucifix meant for the King of Spain. Even my diving mask had been ripped from my face by the surging waves. I was so tired I could barely move. My legs kept cramping until finally I was forced to kick off my swim fins, despite the fact that without them, I would have to swim unaided for many miles. By 3 a.m. I was shaking with cold and riding lower in the water. I realized my BC had lost air pressure. I was sinking fast. With no tank to bleed air from, I used a manual mouthpiece to reinflate it. My only hope now. The air went out as fast as I blew it in. I saw bubbles coming from a worn-looking hole in the fabric. The constant motion of the rising and falling waves had chafed it until it leaked air. Now I was in real trouble. During the last hours at sea, had moderated until the waves were only about 5 feet high. But for my exhausted body, they may as well have been 100 feet. Treading water with my last reserves of energy, I slipped out of my BC, which was now just a useless weight. Only my thin rubber diving suit was between me and the sea. I can make it, I thought. I had to have faith that somehow I'd be saved, but in reality I knew I stood very little chance of surviving. Suddenly, something brushed my legs, and I jerked them away. The adrenaline rushed to my heart. I knew what it was. Sharks! Sharks feed at night and will attack anything they eat without a fight. I splashed with my arms and kicked my feet. My heart nearly stopped when my hand hit the rough sandpiper hide just inches from me. I had dived around sharks for years and had no fear of them, but being on the surface at night, alone and barely moving, I was an inviting dinner, and I knew it. I was about to get eaten by a shark because I had let a gold crucifix and a chain cloud my judgment. Bump. This time was harder. I knew the shark was sizing me up for a meal. I had no way to defend myself, not even a diving knife. It was on board the boat, useless to me now. Then, stillness. I spun around, trying to see in the dark, but it was black as pitch. Anguish swept over me. With my right hand, I touched the heavy chain still wrapped around my left arm. My nearly total fatigue made it feel like a weight pulling me straight into the bottom. Why hadn't I let it go along with my diving gear earlier? I unwrapped the heavy chain from around my arm, opened my fingers wide, and let it slowly slide downward, back to the seabed where it had lain since the stormy day back in 1715.